Forged with a passion for steel and an iron-like eye for talent. This is the Recruiter of Steel podcast. Blast right in 3, 2, 1.
Now, I'm going to be blunt with this one. There are 5 core reasons why steel companies struggle to hire top sales talent. And I'm going to go through them with you today. For those of you who don't know me or are here for the first time, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. But if you don't know me, my name is Tyler Rossi. I'm the president of American Dream Search and the host of this podcast, which is the Recruiter of Steel. I have spent the last few years headhunting top sales and commercial talent in the steel industry. We specifically focus on sales talent and commercial leaders specifically in this space. We're talking mills, service centers, processors, nothing else. That is the space that we play in. And no other headhunter and no other recruitment firm is that specific. So when I go through these 5 reasons with you, it's going to become clear that this is coming from somebody that is on the ground, in it every day, talking with top candidates, talking with companies, seeing what's working and what's not. And I'm going to give you some real examples. Now, some of you listening might say, we don't do any of that. And we're great. We're hiring top reps. We're growing year over year. We've never been better. But others, this might be a learning lesson. This might be a wake-up call. Because if you're struggling to hire top people, this is going to be something that you need to know. Before I get started, I do want to make something very clear. It doesn't matter what the market is. Unemployment could be sky high. Unemployment could be at record lows. There's never a shortage of top talent because top talent is always the same. They're hardly ever on the market. And this is something that gets missed quite often. Top salespeople, 95, 99% of them, with the exception of the occasional restructuring or consolidation event, we're seeing a little bit more of those now. But 95, 99% of the time, they are currently working. They're not applying on Indeed. They're not going through LinkedIn day and night looking for jobs. They're actively prospecting, actively closing business, and actively making it rain where they are. So if you want to hire those types of individuals, you have to understand there are certain things you need to do to attract them, and there are certain things that you need to not do to repel them. And we're seeing a lot of the latter, so I want to make it clear what those 5 reasons are. So let's get started right now. The first thing is a lack of market understanding. And this is going to breed into the last 4 reasons as well. But the first thing is a lack of market understanding. So what does that mean? Very simply, comp ranges, right? Top salespeople, they want to be paid. If we don't know what the market is making, you're usually coming in too low, right? And I think the biggest thing that we make the mistake of doing is say, well, a top sales rep is going to want, high upside, right? It doesn't really matter so much on the base. We'll throw 60, 70, 80 grand at them, but they're going to make more of their money on the other end. And that may be true. However, how do you prove that? How do you prove that? If they're already at a company now, let's say their base is 140, 150, and they're making double that, right? So maybe $250,000, $300,000 OTE, very common for a top rep in the steel industry. Some are even making double that. But let's say you're trying to attract somebody like that, and they're already at a 150 base. How do you think lowering that base by 50,000, maybe 100,000 even, is going to get their foot in the door? Do you really think they're going to take that call? They're going to answer that message? They're going to respond to that email? If the guaranteed income that you're pitching them a new opportunity is half of what they're making now? No, it's not going to happen. If you want somebody to come on board and you believe that they're going to make the majority of their income through commission, which a top salesperson should, you still need to prove that it's possible, because there are a lot of companies out there, not just in the steel industry, but across all different disciplines, across all different industries, that promise a high OTE that isn't really possible, right? There are OTEs out there thrown around in all different types of sales orgs that has never been attainable. So a top salesperson is going to be weary of that, right? If you say $300,000 OTE, but here's a 60K base, well, how do I get there? What's the commission percentage? Okay, so I need to bring in $10 million worth of revenue. How many accounts are we starting with? What's our starting point? Oh, it's zero. You want us to build this book from scratch. Well, maybe the first year we can get to 2 or 3 million, but that's going to be a stretch. So we're really looking at this 3, 4 years down the line until we build something, right? So maybe let's lower that OTE by half. See, that's the problem that many are making. If you want a top rep, you have to understand this. You have to guarantee a certain level of income. Now, I've seen companies do it where that base lowers over time, right? They're going to build their book of business. They're going to grow. They're going to earn more commission over time. But that first year, just to get them in the door, just to have your logo on their back, gonna have to throw some money at them the same way professional sports teams do, right? You're not going to recruit Tom Brady to play for you and pay him 120 grand. He's worth 40-50 million even now at 48 years old, right? That's just what it is. You want a top MVP player, you need to pay them and you need to guarantee what you're paying them. That's a lack of market understanding, right? You need to understand the market. The other thing is to understand the situation that you're putting them in, right? How constraining is the territory that you're putting them in? If it's a national sales role and they have full range across the United States or across North America, great. But what is the current account base there, right? How has that account base been doing over the last few years? Is it declining? Is it on the upswing? How many churned accounts are there? What is it doing on an annual basis now? And what do we think is reasonably possible in the next 12 months? These are questions that you're going to get asked. Um, Overall, I would say a market understanding is you need to know what position you're putting your rep in, right? If you're looking for a territory sales manager, let's say for a specific state of Indiana, let's take it, right? Understand what other service centers or other competitors of you are doing in that region, right? Where are folks at now? Where are they trying to be? And we try to close the gap, right? If it's a national sales role, great. It's going to be a little bit more money. It's going to be a little bit more cumbersome too, right? So how do we get them there? You have to have a good market understanding, especially when it comes to comp, and especially also when it comes to workplace environment, right? I've seen some service centers and some mills out there say, yeah, you're an outside rep, but you need to report to the office 4 days a week. 2026, that's really hard to come by, especially if you're trying to recruit a top rep that has 15 years under his or her belt that has worked remotely for the last 10, right? That's going to be very, very difficult to recruit. So you have to pull different levers if you want somebody. And if you're leaving too many levers unchecked, you're just not going to get somebody in the door. You have to have a strong market understanding. Number two, lack of definition of the role. So this, again, breeds from a lack of market understanding, but I'm seeing a lot of service centers, particularly the small and medium-sized ones, more on the small side, really look for a plug-and-play solution, right? The go-to verbiage is this. We need a book of business, right? We want somebody with a plug-and-play solution. And don't get me wrong, I've filled some of those searches. It's not impossible, but it'll probably take you 3 or 4 times the amount of time than you think if you want to hire. So let's say if you need somebody or you want somebody in the next 30 days, no, it's going to take 120. That's just what it is. There's probably only about 10 to 15 people in the market that actually have a book of business in what you're selling that are a top candidate. So the chances of recruiting them are extremely low. You need to make sure you have a good market understanding. You need to make sure you're good on comp. You need to make sure that you're good on benefits. You need to make sure that you're good on pricing, that you're good with your value adds, that you're good on lead times, that you're good in so many different areas, right? Because the market is so tight if that's what you're going to do. But having a lack of definition of what the role is and what you need is a big problem in the market right now. Saying that you want a book of business and just somebody to plug and play is not a role. I put out a video a couple weeks ago about this too. I own a recruitment agency, right? Right now, we're very specific. We just do sales talent in the steel industry. But if a recruiter came to me and said, Tyler, I do $500,000 to $1 million a year in your space or your adjacent space, I would love to join you and bring my clients over and pay you money. I'm going to hire you. I'm going to hire that person, right? I'll even give them one of these shirts for free. That is not a solution to hiring. When you look to hire and bring somebody on board, you have to understand not every book of business is going to be translatable, right? And if you're only going to hire somebody with a very specific translatable book of business, it's really not a strategy, right? It's a wishful thinking. It's, oh, I would take somebody on if they was instantly going to give me money and there was zero risks to the hire. And you're very, very risk averse hiring that way. And if that's the only type of person that you're willing to bring on, you're really never going to grow. Okay. You're really never going to grow. Not to say it's not a nice to have, not to say it's not impossible to hire those folks, but I'm telling you, if you're serious about growing, hire somebody with a sales mindset that is a hunter, that can go grab that business, you can mold into your culture, that you could mold into your way of selling, and you can actually grow an organization that is developing reps, that is developing your people, rather than just taking books of business here and there, right? A lack of definition of the role usually breeds to that. So what I would say is this: think about the role that you're looking for, right? There's two camps. There's a hunter and there's a farmer, right? If you need a hunter, let's say this is a business development role, right? We need to bring on new business. What is the goal? Where are we going after business? Okay, maybe it's national, maybe it's a specific region, right? And we have to articulate why. Why do we want business over there? Well, we could actually get product over there in less than 2 days and we can be competitive. Okay, great. Well, we have good mill connections over there. We got good pricing. We got good lead times. Maybe we have some connections with processors out there. It's all going to flow really well. Totally great. But you have to have some type of strategy. It can't be, well, we'll take somebody anywhere, right? That's not a strategy. That's not a strategy at all. Understand if you want a hunter or if you want a farmer. On the latter end, if you want a farmer is somebody that is great at cultivating relationships, great at walking in books of business that you currently have that have maybe been managed or mismanaged for the last few years, that they can go in, reintroduce themselves, freshen things up, maybe go to accounts that have churned for the last few years and bring them back online, go to accounts that are your greater accounts and increase those, right? Develop those relationships, find new avenues for upselling and new avenues for revenue streams within your existing business. Those are two different skill sets, right? The hunter is great at pounding the phones, great at knocking down doors, great at, closing some accounts and getting some folks online. But that account manager is somebody who's going to be a little bit more relationship focused, is somebody that's going to really say, okay, here's the strategy. We have 100 accounts in this region. Here's our top 20. Here's the bottom 80. Here's the strategy going forward. We're going to infiltrate here and there. We're going to increase revenue here. We're going to maximize revenue here. We're going to keep things steady over here. There's a method to it, right? You have to understand, do you want a hunter or do you want a farmer? Very hard to get both. But if you have a set of book of business that you need to keep steady or grow, go after the farmer. If you need new business in a new area because there's opportunity for your company, go for the hunter, right? Have a definition of what you're looking for. And then when you have that definition, make sure you know the market so that you're compensating them well and you're not coming at it blind. Those are the first two reasons. Number three, and I see this a lot as well, and again, it breeds from the previous two, is overvaluing product expertise versus sales ability. This is something that I see very, very problematic in the steel industry. Okay. Product knowledge is important. You need to know the product that you're selling, right? But we very much underscore sales ability. The steel industry and the metals industry in particular, I believe, is very difficult to break into. There's a high barrier to entry, even though sales generally as a discipline or as a trade, a function, there's no license, there's no specific degree that you need, right? Anyone could become a salesperson. But the steel industry is very, very picky in terms of who they allowed, specifically on the outside, to go and sell product, right? They don't want to really bring in anybody from the outside. If if you've been a very successful medical device sales rep, if you've been successful selling SaaS and tech, if you've been successful even in adjacent industries like building materials and capital equipment, still very, very difficult to break into a service center and start selling flat roll product or structural, carbon steel, right? It's not always the case. And I find it problematic because there's so many successful sales reps that do want to break into this industry, that have a process, that know how to prospect, that are great at developing relationships and closing accounts, right? That's an invaluable skill set that's really hard to teach. And oftentimes employers are overvaluing the product expertise. And just so you understand this, a great salesperson, if you're a great salesperson, no matter what industry that you're in, you're going to make it a mission to learn your product and learn your ICP, right? You can't be a great person if you don't know your product and you don't know your ICP, because you won't know what the hell you're talking about. So if a great salesperson is coming to you and say, hey, maybe I've sold aluminum, but I want to get into carbon steel, or vice versa, right? Maybe you've been selling carbon steel all your life and I want to get into stainless, or I want to get into some special alloys, right? It's a different market. It's a different product. But if they've demonstrated that they can do it in another arena, why not take a shot on them? Maybe ask a little bit more questions about their process. How did you become so successful? How did you learn about your ICP? How do you go about explaining your product and selling your value-added services, right? Those are all invaluable skill sets. If we just value product expertise, the issue becomes is that we get somebody on board that is a great technical advisor, but clients never end up signing the dotted line, right? They're great on the phone. They could answer a problem here and there. But if you need to win business now, that person is going to have a difficult time. It's a different skill set to know how to ask for business. It's a different skill set to prospect, to pick up a phone, cold call somebody, and develop a relationship out of nothing, right? You can be the greatest metallurgist of all time. You could have went to school. You could have worked in a mill for 20 years on a specific product, and that product inside and out. That doesn't necessarily always translate to a sales position. So if you're hiring for sales, you have to equally consider sales ability just as much, if not more, than you do product expertise. All right. So I think we need to be a little bit more open as an industry, as employers in this space, to folks that have demonstrated that they can sell similar product, maybe not exact, similar product successfully. And they have a process of doing it. And that process is easily translatable, not just the product expertise. Okay. So the first three, to recap: number one, lack of market understanding. We need to know how to pay people. We need to know what people are making. We need to understand where they're coming from. Number two, lack of role definition. Do you want a hunter? Do you want a farmer? Somebody with a book of business is not a solution. That's a plug and play thing. And you really need to understand what you're going after. Number three, overvaluing product expertise versus the sales ability. Think back to sales. You're hiring for sales, not a product expert. Number four, indecisiveness or a broken hiring process. I'm going to give you a couple examples here of what I've seen recently. This is recent stuff that has happened on my desk without naming names or anything. Is to go through a couple examples. So there are, especially when we look at specific product niches and different focuses and disciplines within the steel industry, right? You have your structural components, you have your flat rolled steel, you have piling products you could even get into, your fabrication stuff. There's different areas in steel. And if you're going for somebody with an expertise in that specific area, that's fine. Just know the candidate market is a lot slimmer, right? So it's important to give candidates, when you interview them, a great experience. I have two different examples. Let's start on a positive note with a successful example, right? This was the most recent placement that we made. I'll give you a quick background. The company came to us. They had a team of 15 salespeople. They were down 2. and they were down two, not because they couldn't close. It was actually because they couldn't manage products over time, because this was a fabrication, construction type sales within the steel industry, right? You need to manage job orders and production and product shipments, right? It's not just transactional sales. So they needed somebody that was a little bit more of a farmer or a product manager, right? So we got working on the search. We got a few candidates in play, and then we came across somebody that was 3 minutes down the road from a direct competitor and had experience not only selling their type of product, but jumping into a product management role and doing exactly what they needed. Now, when I talked to this person on the phone, it was very apparent that this company was, their current employer, was not compensating them appropriately. They were at a base salary, but zero upside. The commission plan was essentially changed over time, and nothing was really possible at that point. So they weren't earning much. And they wanted to make a change, right? This individual had two kids and two twins on the way. And so they wanted to make a change for themselves and their family, rightfully so. So we said, okay, we have an opportunity. Luckily for you, it's 3 minutes down the road, and you'd be selling pretty much exactly what you're doing. But they need that product management expertise. I see that you have that. Tell me about that. Okay, great. Checks off. Well, the great news about this opportunity is you're stuck at 120 right now. Average reps here are making between 175 and 225. Now, the base salary is a little lower. It's like 75, but they're making more on the upside, right? So this individual seemed open to it, said, yes, okay, I'm happy to talk with them. Turns out they hit it off with the hiring manager, who also is a father of twins. And what I'm trying to get at here is the process wasn't broken, right? We submitted this candidate. They had an interview within 2 days on the phone, or in person rather. Brought them in. They went on vacation the following week. Can't touch a vacation, right? That happens. But as they were on vacation, booked a mill tour right after that, got them to tour the mill, made the offer on spot, put in their 2 week, and they're working within under 30 days. Under 30 days, a hire from a direct competitor, 3 minutes down the road. Totally had no idea that this company was hiring, had no idea really who they were. Totally changed this person's life. But here's the points I want to get after. Our client did two things correct. Number one, they were quick, right? They said their availability that week. They got the person in the office. Great. They were going on vacation the following week. No problem at all. Let's get something on the books now. They did that. They came back. They did the mill tour. They didn't waste any time. They said, this is our guy. Here's an offer. Would you like to accept? Easy. Easy. And in less than 30 days, that individual was starting in that office. Less than 30 days. Another thing our client did well is they understood the market. And we were very clear. This person, even though their ceiling was lower, making 120, their base was higher. They were making 100 base. So our client, while at 75, even though there was higher upside, said, you know what? This is somebody with a family. They're not going to walk backwards to go forwards. We're going to guarantee them 100 for the first year. Boom. It ends the debate. They have their 100,000. They feel comfortable. They'll generate those commissions over time. And then next year, the base salary won't matter as much. It could drop back to the average, which is 75, because those commissions will have been earned. But to get them in the door, they didn't say 75, take it or leave it. They said, we'll guarantee you your 100. We know that's where you need to be. We know you have bills. We'll give you that, and then you'll grow from there. It's an easy win. It's an easy win because the client understood where the candidate was. They met them there and they said, you know what? We're not going to waste any time. We don't need 6 interviews. We don't need to wait 90 days to hire somebody. We don't need to speak with 3 other people just to make sure that we're good on this person, right? Let's hire them. It's a rep. There are NFL coaches hired in less time than some reps in this industry. And I'm going to give you an example that's not so good with a similar product and another different client. So on the contrary, I was working with a different client, And they were looking for somebody that was specific in piling industry, right? And we were looking for a rep that was seasoned there, that essentially had a book of business, right? If we're being frank, a plug and play solution. And the search did not take just 30 days, right? It took about 90 days to locate this person. And this was through word of mouth. This was having to speak with folks of who they know in the industry, because we've talked with a lot of candidates that had expertise, but they weren't the type that was the plug and play solution. So we had to ask, who do you know that's a great fit? Who do you know that's your top rep? Who do you deal with? And eventually we found ourselves at this individual who was referred to us. One of the most experienced folks in that industry, specifically as it pertains to um, civil utility projects. And got them in process. The client had interviewed them once, had interviewed them twice, had asked for a business plan. That took quite a little bit of time with requiring pricing numbers and whatnot. Got them on the phone again, asked for a revised plan, got them on the phone again, and then got a call 60 plus days later that they had taken a new position. That is the difference between decisiveness and indecisiveness. Our first client was decisive. They saw somebody from a direct competitor 3 minutes down the road, bring him in. He checks the box, schedule the second one, nails it, offer on the spot, start less than 30 days. The second client made a mistake. They dragged their feet. They found somebody who was essentially that unicorn, a plug and play solution, but dragged it out just to dot their I's and cross their T's way too many times. A 6-step interview process, asking for a detailed sales plan and business plan, asking for revisions, asking for work that really should only be done once that person has signed the dotted line and is getting a paycheck. 5-6 rounds of interviews, 60 plus days in process, only to be left by that person accepting another position because the process was too cumbersome. Now, what that client is left with is somebody that could have been a plug and play solution, is a top producer in that industry, but has a negative perception of their brand and their process. Our first client did the opposite. They grabbed a competitor. They were decisive. That person has a great experience with them, knows they're decisive, knows they want what they want. Nothing's unclear, and gave him a great experience. So even if it doesn't work out, there's going to be great things to say. I can't say the same for the latter client. The point being is this: you need to be decisive on your interview process. Max 3-step process for interviews: phone call, virtual call, on site. That's max. It really could just be virtual and on site. Or if you're remote, 1 or 2 virtual calls. We don't need to take longer than it is for professional coaches and executives to get hired. These are steel industry reps. They're great. They're talented. But, there are others out there as well if they don't work out. We can't drag our feet too long. You need to be decisive in your interview process. Map it out before you get involved in a search. Know who is involved in the interview process, what our process is, max 3 steps, and that offer, once you have that final interview, should come no more than 48 hours after. Communicate it verbally, get the okay, send the offer, get the dotted line signed, and get somebody in seat. It doesn't need to take too long. Be decisive with your process. Okay. And lastly, number 5, once you do hire somebody, think about what you're going to give him or her to succeed. You can't have the mindset of, we'll hire somebody and they'll figure it out. No. The only thing they're going to figure out is their way out the door. You need to figure out how you're going to support that person. Do you have an onboarding system, an onboarding process? What's the goal and the metrics that they should hit in the first 90 days, the first 6 months, the first year? Do you know what that is? What are their targets? Monthly targets, quarterly targets, annual? What are their metrics? Do we have defined? And if they're not defined, what are our goals? What are their targets? How do we benchmark their success? Are we investing in our salespeople? CRMs, discovery tools, stuff like LinkedIn, Sales Navigator, Zoom Info. Are we giving them prospecting ability? Or are we saying just go on Google and ChatGPT and figure it out? Are we investing in sales training, AI training, which is going to be big? Do your salespeople know how to do a prompt? Do they know how to do proper research and leverage AI? Maximize their efficiency? Are we giving them the resources to be successful? And if we're not, you can't complain when they're not. You need to give folks the resources to be successful. Or else, once you finally do bring in that top rep, they'll be out the door and we'll be looking for another. You don't want that. I hope you enjoyed these. These are 5 reasons why steel companies are struggling to hire top reps. Let's break it down again. Lack of market understanding, lack of role definition, overvaluing product expertise versus your sales ability, being indecisive, especially in that interview process and what you're looking for. And lastly, zero investment. You need to invest in your people in order to succeed. Okay. Hiring is not something without a little bit of risk, right? You always do a little bit of risk when you hire. But if you know this, if you're a founder, if you're a president of a company like I am, there's risk going into it. There's risk starting a business. There's risk with every investment that you make. And the same is true when it comes to your employees, right? There's no such thing as a plug and play solution. Even when you buy a software or system, you have to use it in order to get a return, right? There's no such thing as a easy money win-win. You need to invest in your people. You need to invest in your process, and you need to invest into understanding what it is you're looking for and the market that you're looking to serve. If you need help hiring, if you need help finding top reps in your specific space, you're watching the right podcast. You know who to call. That is my forte. But think about these things before going off and hiring on your own. Make sure, do I have a strong understanding of the market? Do I know exactly what I'm hiring for? It's a farmer, it's a hunter. Do I value the sales ability of the candidates applying, not just their product knowledge? Don't cross off people that are selling stainless when you're selling aluminum. There's still value in there. Do you have your interview process dialed in, right? Or do you know what the first step is and what the last step is and everything in between? And are you investing in your people? When they come through the door, are they going to be blown away by what they see? Or are they going to be like, oh shit, what did I just get myself into? You don't want the latter. Appreciate everyone watching. If you need help hiring or you need help being hired in metal sales, in steel sales, you know who to call. Thanks again, and see you on the next one.
Thanks for listening to the Recruiter of Steel podcast. If you enjoyed our finished product, please subscribe and leave a rating. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next one.